Welcome back to the Maven Show. This is your host Rohit. Today we have Cindy, the TV host, author, and marketing specialist. Thank you, Cindy, for getting into the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great because once again, I do several different things, but it's really good, I think, sometimes put a face on a person, what they do.
So would you just like to give a quick intro of yourself first, like how you got started and the quick intro of yours?
That'd be great. As far as marketing PR, I actually started doing that when I worked for my family's business. We had a retail travel agency, but I got hooked on cruising and went to work for them to build up our cruise sales. But I really got into marketing, how to best, promote cruises without being too salesy. And the good thing is we had a retail location. At that point, we got to put up posters, whatever it was, people walk by and see us because we were right next to a grocery store, which is great. So anyway, I started that different ways to partner with different preferred suppliers. For instance, I actually then tried to find some people that might be good as far as organizing a group cruise. Group leaders did that. Did presentations, things like that too. Because the thing is, you got to get your name out there in different ways. And over the years, one thing I've done too is I've actually done some PR work for other companies on the side as project stuff too. One was a well-known restaurant chains. They were actually rebranding themselves to be more fast casual. So I did that, got them into Fast Casual magazine, which is great. But also in the meantime too, I like sharing positive PR, but also I've contributed to 3 different PR news writers guidebooks, which is great. Been writing for years anyway. Started writing about the travel cruise industry for different trade magazines on the side, then started writing for my friend Jeff 22 years ago. I still do it on the side, but once again, goes back to sharing true stories. And I like pulling out the stories of a company, their people, their products, what makes them stand out in a real way. We need it more than ever because it goes back to our talking before. People don't like to see ads.
Yep.
People hate advertising. I don't like it. My brother-in-law turns off the TV when the ads come on. He'll just like pause through it. But the point is, if you see real people,
yep,
it makes a difference. And one quick example of that is I've got a business friend. I met my business friend Tim a long time ago, and actually had him speak at one of the events I used to co-chair at Loyola through my alumni board. But what happened was he and his brothers came into work for his father's family furniture business, high-end furniture, high-quality furniture. And they would deliver furniture, the whole thing. What they did was Tim had gotten his MBA from Northwestern and became their chief marketing officer. What they did was, furniture is furniture. What they did, though, is they got to start doing commercials. But the thing is, the commercials, they would be the 3 brothers. They became the brand, which was great. And they moved up, did really, really fun things. Like one time when Donald Trump was doing the Apprentice show years ago, Tim came up with an idea for commercial, right? And that got commercials in the major TV stations in Chicago area plus more. They decided to do a fun twist on that where Tim was going to come in, sit down with a red wig on and have his brother come in. Okay. And he told him, okay, you're fired.
Oh, wow. Got it.
And they said, you can't fire us for your brothers. But it's funny. They did twists like that, like crazy. And then his dad did retire. They did some funny things about one time his parents decided to do some trips, whatever. And then his dad did retire. But then they had a really fun video, commercial type thing. They did it where his mother called in and said, okay, come on, you got to get your dad back to work. He's driving me crazy. They had photographs, videos of their dad directing traffic in Chicago, driving one of the river boats like crazy. You got to get him back to work. I can't stand this. What happened was, and it was funny, but it just caught people's attention because people know who Walter Smith Furniture is. But what happened too is then Tim decided to step down day-to-day, chief marketing officer. He's still on the board, whatever his brothers are, but they decided to have the daughters come in. So the daughters are now the brand of the company, but it's really fun what they do too. So it's the 3 daughters that are doing the commercials now. Really, really fun. People love that because it pulls out the story of the business, and they've been around for over 50 years, very successful, very high-end furniture, believe me, expensive, but people immediately love the commercials and they know who Walter Smith is.
And obviously, like big brands has the big commercials. What would you like to speak about the emotional connection?
Good thing too is, I've got a lot of background. I do a lot of writing about the cruise industry. All the executives out there. But the fun thing is Richard Branson, okay, very well.
Yeah.
Right. He had never taken a cruise, but he
Mhm.
actually did some discussions with cruise lines to maybe start a cruise line together. He decided to go off on his own. Okay. But the thing is, he didn't like the word cruise.
Mhm.
He didn't like the term cruisers. So what he
Mhm.
did was the name of his company is called Virgin Voyages.
Yeah,
And
well,
the guests on board are called sailors. Okay.
yeah.
He doesn't like the word cruise. Okay. What they've done is they have launched, they just took possession of the third ship, which is great. I finally had a chance to see the Scarlet Lady last year at a conference. They took us down to Miami. The ship had just docked there to finally sail out because things got delayed with coronavirus. But the fun thing is, they are adults only,
Mhm.
between 18 years and older to sail on their ships, period. No kids allowed, right? Well, the funny commercials they've got now is, I don't know if you've seen the commercial, they got a commercial where the kids are kind of crying like, Mom and Dad, we know you're going to be taking a cruise, we can't go with you. And it's a hysterical commercial. It really kind of hits home with people because it's really basically you have to be 18 years and older.
Yeah, got
But
it.
that kind of makes it stand out too in a separate way too. And I think we really, that's, people kind of relate to that too. I mean, the kids are crying, the parents are leaving, they say, well, please take us to the next cruise when we can really go. But I
Yeah.
think people relate to that kind of stuff more than ever, because once again, it goes back to, you're putting a face on a company, a business. What makes them stand out, makes them special.
Why do people love human touch and story?
Well, I think today, in fact, this just came up too, is I have been using a special app done by Vidyard for probably 8 years now. It's called Go Video.
Uh-huh.
It's free. And what they do is, there are other companies that do it too. Vidyard is actually in Canada. I've actually done some of the virtual training online too, which is great. But what they did was they came up with this app called Go Video. You can download it. And then I use it primarily for my iPhone, of course, but I can do it for my laptop. You can actually film a short video. I keep them under 2 minutes. And then you can actually email it to a person you wanted to go to. And this just came up. I did a video to a person I just met at an event about 3 weeks ago. And what you do is you email the person, and the thing is, the video, it's me talking to them, shows up right away. They can click on it. I'm talking to them. Because the big thing is today more than ever, when you try and get some help from someone, you can't talk to a real person. You're talking to a machine.
Yeah.
And it's stressful because you can't get a dang answer from a real human being. And we need that more than ever, because it goes back to years ago, you could pick up the phone and ask a question. Now, when you call certain companies, you're listening. This is automated responses. I understand full sentences. Well, sometimes they don't. Okay. But the point is, I really think more than now ever, I mean, automation is important, of course. We need technology, of course. We can't live without it. But the point is, there's still a need for that human face and
Yeah.
that personal touch. So people know that you really care about them, sometimes you might send an email off to somebody, an executive, right? I mean, I do that. I've known several over the years. And the thing is, sometimes your emails go into their spam thing, whatever, but it just kind of depends. But once again, too, I think what really makes, I think, great leaders, I'm going to be writing about this too down the road too, a separate book, but I did a twist and array. But the point is, when we look at great leaders today, what makes them stand out in your mind?
Uh-huh.
It goes back to something, I think they really care about people. They've got that human component, human touch. A good example, Southwest Airlines. I'm a big fan of Southwest Airlines. I love them dearly. They just celebrated the 50th year. What happened was Gary Kelly, no, not Gary Kelly, he's chairman now. He's going to be moving up, but
Uh-huh.
Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest Airlines, has got a fantastic story. What happened was, he was an attorney, very successful, got an idea for an airline, and he met with a friend, and they mapped it out on a bar napkin in a bar.
Got it.
He successfully started. They had to kind of fight the big guys, because the big guys like American, United, Delta, they all want to put them under. They're starting just doing some smaller trips, whatever. They've grown a very successful airline, but it goes back to that human component, because once again, their big thing is people really are important to them. Also, one thing that's really impressive too is Herb, over the years, he would actually work on the flight sometimes too. He would actually be like delivering the little treats or helping the guys with the baggage type things too. And this just came up recently too with Bob Jordan. He's the CEO president. He was actually on a Southwest Airlines flight going down the aisles picking up trash.
Oh.
He's the president, CEO. And the thing is, I had actually sent Herb Keller a letter when I worked for as a travel advisor myself. I did book Southwest Airlines like crazy. I had one client of mine who was actually sending her son by himself.
Mhm.
He was legally old enough to fly by himself. But the point is, he had to go from one gate to another gate. The
Mhm.
reservation agent that I actually spoke with to get him booked, she told me,
Mhm.
Cindy, I work at the airline at that terminal. I can escort him from one gate to another gate.
Got it.
I sent Herb letter about that, plus other things. He's moving up to being chairman. He's on the front cover of Fortune magazine, moving up to be chairman of the whole corporation.
Uh-huh.
He sent me the most beautiful thank you letter back to send. It's people that work with us. And then he gave me a quote. He's an article. I mean, he was chairman of Southwest Airlines. He sent me a letter and then sent me a quote. And the thing is, I have a chapter about him in my newest book, but I got my book off to the top executives at Southwest Airlines. They sent me personal thank you letters. And they're busier than anybody else. I mean, I think that's part of great leadership. And that's really even like another friend of mine, he's a cruise line chairman now, MSC Cruises USA. Rick and I go way back. And I just happened to see him. I just came back from seeing their new ship in New York. I saw him briefly, but we do text messages all the time. He's chairman of the MSC USA operation. He's over in Genoa, their headquarters all the time, but he's great. But the thing is, I think great leaders, they really appreciate people and they don't treat you like a number and they truly care. And like I said,
Yeah.
it's important to have that component too. I mean, a good example too is, funny thing is, sometimes things happen for a reason. Christine Duffy, who's the president of Carnival Cruise Line.
Mm-hmm.
When she got out of school years ago, she wanted to be a flight attendant. Well, back in those days, you had to be a certain height and weight. Okay. You had to be 5'4", a certain weight, right? Well, guess what? She was 2 inches too short to be a flight attendant. She couldn't be a flight attendant. She was 5'2", not 5'4". Well, she got a job working as a receptionist for a travel agency. They moved up in different roles and got into some central travel company and relocated there. And then she actually became president of the Cruise Lines International Association. And then she actually became president of Carnival Cruise Line in, I think, 2016, but great person. And, it was another way to kind of shift gears as far as, okay, this didn't work out, so let's go with this.
Yeah.
But she worked her way up. And it's, I think we have great people like that. I actually saw her briefly a couple weeks ago. I was at the christening naming ceremony of their new ship. But the fun thing is, she was greeting people like crazy. And they did this really, really fun show later on. That a big, a 1 hour show.
Got it.
And they had the Cool in the Game.
Uh-huh.
They're a real well-known artists, singers, right? They performed, but she got on the stage with them later on to kind of help dance with them at the end. It was really fun. And then greeting people like crazy before we left. But the thing is, it just goes back to, people want to feel like they're not important, but they're cared about. And just, I think that's connecting good people with good people, which I love doing anyway. And that's important to me more than ever. I think that's a good part of leadership too.
How do big brands acquire and retain customers the right way,
But it goes back to, yes, like I said, you want to make sure that, because the loyalty thing goes back to, you get booked on something and then you have the experience, but it goes back to what's the experience. A good example is, cruises. How was your experience on the ship with the staff maybe too?
Uh-huh.
Because that's part of the thing is, does it make you want to come back? I mean, obviously I like cruising myself. I do love cruising. Yes, been running around for a long time. But the point is, when you go on a ship, I think a big part of the component for loyalty is how you're being treated on the ship. One cruise line, they actually went under, unfortunately, they are restarting, however, with other owners, which is great. But one of the things I just noticed about the staff members is they really love what they did. They were treated very well. I talked to a couple of people, they worked other cruise lines, said, we really love working here. Plus also, when we're getting ready to disembark from the ship, I've never seen so many of the cruise guests hugging those staff members as they're leaving. Things like that. And I think that's part of the component of ours. The loyalty factor is so important today more than ever. So you don't feel like you're treated like a number, but if you like the product, what makes you want to come back? If you have a great experience, that's important too. And even if there's a situation where it's kind of a little tough, but it's how it's being handled too. So you don't feel like you're just being dropped off. Like for instance, a good example is we've had some really, really issues with flying. Okay. Yes, okay. I mean, I had my flight canceled. I was flying back on April 1st from a
Mhm.
conference.
Mhm.
I checked out of the hotel, went to the convention center for the rest of the conference, flying back that night. At 12:30, I get a text message from the airline. They canceled my flight. They put me in a flight the next morning. I already checked the hotel. Okay. And I reached out to them. I called. They're very, very nice. I feel it just, I was on the phone for an hour and they said, we can't do anything. Some things came up. They put me on 2 flights the next day. Well, thank goodness I had a friend who stayed in the hotel. So she said, room with me. I paid her half down for the hotel because it's very expensive. Then next morning, I got up 6:30. My flight was in like 10 o'clock. I get up early, get to the airport because I think there were a lot of delays going on and things, cancellations. Because the problem is people started traveling like crazy. And I think the problem is the airlines had laid off so many people during the coronavirus pandemic stuff that they didn't have enough staff. It wasn't related, weather related. Anyway, they sent me text messages that they were delaying my flights. I thought I'm going to misconnect. So anyway, I went to the airport, was in line for 90 minutes. The person there front desk said, Cindy, I'm going to put you in 3 connecting flights. Okay. We left a little bit later. And I kept getting text messages. And what happened was then they were going to be putting my flights, the flights were getting delayed, whatever. And at one point I got a text message that my last flight wasn't going to be leaving Dallas until 9:53, I think, on April 3rd, the next evening. So
Mhm.
I got off the plane, went to the gate. They said, "Oh, we're leaving before 2 o'clock in the morning." We did that, thank God, but it's crazy.
You recently have published 2 books, you know, like what are those books, like those 2 books all about, and what's the story behind each of them?
Okay, well, the first book I wrote, I got published in 2018, was about the top women cruise line executives. The cruise one, I'd written some pieces for one publishing company a long time ago. The first one I pitched was about the 2 top women cruise line executives in 2005 for Sea Trade Insider. At that point, we had 2 women cruise line presidents, but I included vice presidents. Okay. And they got great stories. So I thought, my friend Rick says, you got to write a story. You got to write a book. Come on. I wrote a book and it's about the top women cruise line executives. And they got great stories. Christine Duffy's one example I gave you, Chronicle Cruise Lines. Great stories, though. And I plan to update the book in 2020. Finally got information from the one cruise line woman president. My first book, she's busy with her new ship, but I saw she gave me everything I needed in February 2020, then coronavirus hit. I thought, well, let's wait, okay? Because I want to share their stories, how they moved up in their careers. But I thought, just wait, because, I know 2 people are going to step down. So I thought, let's write a different book about great people we've interacted with over the years, okay? But I did a fun dog twist, okay?
Mhm.
It's about great people I interacted with. I've got a chapter about Herb Kelleher, Southwest Airlines, of course, the former chairman. I've got a chapter about my friend Rick, who's chairman of MSC Cruises USA. I've got a chapter about the first and only woman American captain of a cruise line ship,
Mhm.
Captain Kate McHugh, Celebrity Cruises. I happened to meet her. I've written about her before. I've got a chapter about Sister Jean. She's actually the chaplain for the basketball team at Loyola, Chicago, Loyola Ramblers. Our team was in the Final Four in 2018. She's in national news. Okay. Great person, great story. In fact, she's writing, she's got her memoir out now too, I think. I just ran across it last night. But the thing is, I thought, let's share stories about great people that are human beings that I've been fortunate to interact with over the years. But I decided to do a dog twist. Okay.
Yeah.
The title of my book is called Message from the Dog, Learning from Great Humans.
Messages from the Dog, Learning from Great Humans. Got it.
Yes. And it's by Miss Zoe.
And Cindy Bertram. I got it.
Yes, Miss Zoe is my sister's dog. I call her my puppy niece. We talk a lot. I mean, dogs are smart. They've got a sixth sense. They know good people and bad people. Seriously, they know that. They really do. But I thought, people like their dogs like their kids. And the thing is, I'd written articles anyway on LinkedIn previously, Message from the Dog with Miss Zoe before they did some trail tips from the dog separately in Facebook. But that to get through the pandemic stuff, let's share some positive stories. People immediately like their dogs. This pulls people in, but they're great stories. Plus, I'm her voice. Okay. We wrote the book together, but it's like her talking through the whole book. Because what you do is in a book, you have a section about the authors, So in this case, in the author section, what I did was we were talking, he says, you know what? We dedicated the book. Then she says, when Cindy and I were talking, by the way, I miss Zoe. We decided to write this book together. We knew it was important to continue learning and growing via different ways. And she says, well, we both went to school. She says, yes, I took obedience training lessons myself. Okay. But Cindy actually went to college, got her undergraduate degree in liberal arts, and she got her MBA at Loyola, University of Chicago. She's a Loyola gal. So I did that, just kind of do the dog twist. It's really, really fun. It's her voice and people love it. But the point is, I felt we went through such a bad time with coronavirus.
Yeah.
People passing away. This is trending on. Let's share some positive stories. Or as I tell people, when Miss Zoe and I talk, it's positivity breeds positivity. We need positive stories more than ever. Don't get dragged down. We'll get through it. Okay. It took a lot longer to get through it, but let's get through it and focus on positive things, because once again, we made it through it. We didn't all die. Thank God for that. I mean, thank God for the vaccines and things like that too, and the protocols being put into place, and we're safer. But let's say we got through a very, very tough time, but let's kind of focus on positive things, because once again, another person in my book, he passed away, unfortunately, sadly, but he was executive with different cruise line, then moved on to be president of Visit Orlando. And great guy, but he had actually, after I met him, he did an event in Chicago, and I sent him a little follow-up, and he sent me a really nice card in the mail, and he says, you made my day. That, wow. I mean, that's important. We need stuff like that more than ever. Just, let's focus on the people component and realizing that we're human beings and we're in this together. And work together and get through it, And like I said, it goes back, one quick example too. I mean, I'm a big cruise industry advocate, of course, but the thing is really nice too, is when coronavirus hit, of course, the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, really slapped down the cruise lines like crazy. They couldn't sail. What they did though is they worked together. Okay. The cruise lines worked together with putting together health and safety protocols together. It wasn't like one cruise line finding another cruise line. They worked together, and they hired all these high-end people to kind of do the protocols, whatever. And as my friend Rex has always said too, when he talks to people, there's enough business for all of us. But the thing is, they got through it together because they put together those protocols into place with high-end professionals. And that's important more than ever.
How video storytelling is the best bet in marketing and PR,
I think so, because once again, I mean, what do people do on their phones now? They take videos. I mean, you want to be very careful though too, because once again, depends on where you're going to use videos. Because it goes back to, in my case too, when I do a lot of photography anyway. I've been using photography for years, but when I go to different places like shore excursions on cruise ships, whatever, I make sure I don't put people in the picture, because you got to be careful about that. I mean, you have to get permission, usually use person in the picture. If it's a big picture, it's not a big deal, but the point is being very, very safe about yourself, what you're doing too. But once again, with videos, if you get permission, in fact, I went to this cruise conference, and these people, they asked them to speak, did a short presentation. And what they did was they did a great presentation called Building Your Brand Using Video. It was really good, because once again, they retired but started their own travel agency company. But the big thing is they give a lot of tips too. And it just goes back to, you have to build your brand somehow. And like I said, the videos really help out, makes you stand out. The story. So, I mean, a good example too is when Southwest Airlines actually posted that short video of Bob Jordan actually flying on one of the planes and picking up the garbage. And maybe some people didn't know is Bob Jordan, their CEO president. Okay. And Herb Kelleher did the same thing. It's really important to kind of get your name out there in different ways. And the videos really kind of stand out a little bit. Just have to be careful how you do it too, of course, too. But in my case, I use Go videos. I keep them under 2 minutes. I have a video series I've been doing for the past, I started in 2020 in June or July when the coronavirus hit, just sharing some positive stories, kept them short. I also have a relatively new TV show, kind of came up accidentally as a guest on another TV show. And we film it usually every Friday. And the name of my show is called Good Ship Happens.
Good ship happens.
Good ship happens, because people think, well, they run to me like, well, I just had somebody reach out to me before. She's, well, you're the cruise expert. What do you think about this? funny because people say, okay, what happens at cruise? I say good ship happens. Okay. I mean, just, it's good because the thing is you end up talking about positive things. And it's a good way to I do insider tips kind of things, because what I'm going to be doing today, we're going to film it this afternoon, is I'll be talking more about the naming christening ceremonies in New York City with the new MSC Seascape. It was wonderful. I mean, amazing. They did amazing thing. They flew me out on Tuesday. We're going to ship on Wednesday. We stay on the ship on Wednesday night. But just wonderful things they did during the day, different events, different things for Expo or whatever. But then of the christening, what they did too is they had different entertainment, which is great because they're in New York City, right? They had different people from different things that came aboard. But also one thing that was really, really wonderful was they had Matteo Bocelli, that's Andrea Bocelli's son, sing. He performed a couple of songs before they actually did the official christening. Andrea Bocelli's actually performed at a previous christening of one of the MSC ships a couple of years ago. He actually has very big as far as helping businesses and people across the world, but he actually set up this children's choir in Haiti. And for that one, they actually had him sing with the children's choir from Haiti. It was amazing. And they sing Christmas songs. It was amazing to hear him sing with the children that they trained. Things like that. But Mattia is actually his son. He performed actually the christening of the MSC World Europe. It was just christened about a month ago. And then he performed on Wednesday night. It was just mind-chilling. It was great. But once again, it goes back to just, sharing those positive things. We need that more than ever. And what's kind of insider things too. And but you can actually enjoy as much you want to do. And if you want to do nothing, just watch the ocean. Okay. But it goes back to your choices too, I think, more than ever.
Well, thank you so much for having into the show. I think it was a lovely story of yours into the cruise industry, marketing and PR. And
right.
People will love to hear. So thank you so much for having in.
No, but thank you so much. Because I said, I like talking about the cruise. I do. I just could talk for hours about the cruise industry. But once again, we got great people. Sometimes you see other people, they're kind of not hoity-toity, but the thing is, one thing about these cruise line execs is, they are just so down to earth for the most part, very down to earth. And even one time I was at this cruise conference and there were vice presidents from different cruise lines on a panel. But the one person was there, she's vice president of the cruise line, and she said, well, these are my sisters and brothers. I mean, the point is they work for different cruise lines, but they didn't treat each other like their competitors. And that's one thing I really think about the industry today is they work together. Even when coronavirus hit, they work together to get through it together, just make sure we pull back together even stronger, which is great. And that's one thing I do think it's important about great leaders. They work together. They don't treat you like a number, and they treat you like a human being. We need that more than ever. And that's one thing that I think it's important to, you got to find your little hot button. I like sharing positive stories. I like sharing positive stories and really what makes a company stand out. And that kind of turns really, I think, more so into return on investment, because people get hooked into that too more than ever. But thank you. This has been great.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, though. This has been such a great pleasure to talk about things I love to talk about too. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.